Have you ever wondered what actually separates a regular person from a true genius? Well, it's not just raw intelligence, it's really more of a superpower. People like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Sherlock Holmes, they all tapped into this exact same power. And that is the power of observation. Now, I want to challenge your ego for just a second here. You probably think of yourself as pretty sharp, right? But what if I told you that you might have already missed a completely crucial detail right in front of you since this explainer started? Well, that's exactly what we're unpacking today. We're going to dive deep into the hidden science of human attention and figure out how to unlock your brain's true potential.
So let's test that sharpness right now with a really simple riddle. You are flying a plane with 20 people. An engine catches fire, 6 people jump with parachutes, 2 parachutes blow away. What is the pilot's age? Now, are you doing the math in your head right now, kind of trying to figure out exactly how many people are left on board? Well, if you are, stop for a second and just think about the very first sentence again. You are flying a plane. The pilot's age is literally your age. It's a classic gotcha moment. And hey, if you missed that, do not worry at all, you are definitely not alone. Our brains are actually hardwired to skip over really obvious details so we can jump straight into complex problem solving.
And you know, this brilliantly illustrates a concept perfectly captured by Marilyn Vosavant, who is a woman with literally one of the highest recorded IQs in the world. She said, "To acquire knowledge, one must study. But to acquire wisdom, one must observe." If you failed that pilot riddle, it's basically because you were trying to study the math instead of genuinely observing the words. Think about people who achieve just incredible things, like Safian Hassan, who cracked India's notoriously difficult UPSC civil service exams on his very first try at age 22. He didn't just lock himself away and study textbooks for a year. He spent years prior observing successful officers, watching interviews, really understanding the core patterns. Because true wisdom, that comes from observation.
So the absolute crucial point here is understanding the difference between unconscious seeing and conscious observing. We all use unconscious seeing effortlessly every single day. I mean, it's basically what we call common sense. You can take one look at your best friend and instantly know if they're in a good mood or a terrible mood. You just see it. But conscious observing, now that takes real intentional effort. For example, have you ever noticed that the benches at most metro stations or bus stops are slightly curved? They are designed that way consciously so people can't comfortably sleep on them. Actually noticing those everyday intentional details, that is conscious observation.
To really understand why this happens, consider this absolutely massive number, 11 million. That is the staggering number of data pieces, or bits of information, that your brain and your sensory organs are collecting every single second. Everything you see, smell, touch, hear, and taste. It is just an absolute avalanche of data constantly flooding into your nervous system.
But now, immediately follow that up with its next number. Take a guess. 40. Out of those 11 million pieces of data slamming into your brain every single second, your brain only consciously processes about 40 of them in real time. Just 40. That means your brain has a massive, completely unavoidable processing bottleneck. And what that does is create a massive cognitive blind spot. We are literally consciously processing just 0.003% of reality. That means the other 99.997% of the world happening around us is completely missed. It goes straight into the trash bin of our subconscious. The doors to your brain's conscious processing center are strictly limited.
Which brings us to a really fascinating psychological phenomenon called selective attention. It's the process of focusing on a particular object while simultaneously ignoring completely irrelevant information. You've probably seen one of those video games or tests where you're told to count exactly how many times a group of people jump over a rope, right? You focus so incredibly hard on counting the jumps, 36, 37, 38, you get the number exactly right and you feel incredibly competent. But you completely miss the fact that someone in a giant chicken suit literally just walked right through the middle of the scene. Focusing too intensely on one specific task creates this illusion of competence, but it actually makes us completely blind to glaring details right in front of us.
Sherlock Holmes actually used a brilliant concept to manage all of this, and it's called the brain attic. Think of your mind like an empty room. You choose exactly which pieces of furniture, which details and information you put inside based on your personal interests, your profession, and how you choose to structure it. If a farmer sits under an apple tree and an apple falls, his brain attic is completely structured around farming, so he observes that the apple is ripe and ready to be picked. But when Isaac Newton sat under that exact same tree, his brain attic was structured around physics. He consciously observed why the apple fell downwards, which of course led to the discovery of gravity. The environment was exactly the same, but the brain attic made all the difference.
But let's say you actually do manage to consciously observe something. Why do you still forget it? Well, it really comes down to biology. Your short-term memory is basically like a computer's RAM. It's incredibly limited. Usually, it can only hold about 7 items at any given time. On the other hand, your long-term memory, which sits deep in your hippocampus, has virtually unlimited storage. A major reason we seem to lack observation skills isn't always because we don't notice things, it's because our short-term RAM fills up instantly and we just drop the data entirely before it can ever be saved to our permanent hard drive.
So how do we actually force that data transfer to happen? We use something called the memory palace technique. This is an ancient and super powerful method of moving data from your short-term to your long-term memory by linking it to really bizarre, vivid stories in a physical location you already know well. So if you want to remember a grocery list, don't just repeat the words over and over. Picture your own kitchen. Imagine walking in and seeing a literal rainstorm of eggs falling from the ceiling. You try to run away, but you slip on a massive puddle of slippery ghee right there on the floor. By energetically anchoring these random observations to wild, sensory-rich narratives in a familiar space, you effortlessly transfer them right into your permanent memory.
Now, consider another genuinely fascinating state of mind, which is pure observation. This is the act of gathering sensory data entirely without the filter of language or logical critical thoughts. And you know who the absolute masters of this are? Infants. Babies don't have a distracting inner voice constantly narrating their lives. They don't judge or analyze what they're seeing. They just rely entirely on raw sensory data to absorb the world around them. And this is exactly why their brains develop so incredibly fast in this first few years. They just observe, purely and completely. But as we grow up, we kind of lose this pure state because of what we can call the thought cloud. A really great example of this is the McGurk effect. It's this wild perceptual illusion where a mismatch between what you see and what you hear creates total confusion in the brain. Basically, when our adult inner monologue gets a bit too busy, our thoughts quite literally disrupt our observation. We get so wrapped up in the heavy traffic of our own thinking and analyzing that we miss incredibly basic, obvious details happening right in front of our own eyes.
Section 2, clearing the cloud and mastering your senses. Let's get into how we actually fix this. And this brings us to a totally brilliant and really easy tool, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. It's basically a quick, senseful meditation. Wherever you are, just pause for a second. Identify 5 things you can clearly see. Then, 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear right now, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. By deliberately forcing your brain to cycle through all 5 of your senses, you instantly ground yourself. It just cuts right through all that noise of the thought cloud and anchors you firmly back in reality.
But hey, what if your overthinking is really severe and you are just completely distracted? Well, that's exactly when you need the box breathing technique. It's a vital tool. You simply inhale deeply for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 4 seconds, exhale slowly for 4 seconds, and then hold empty for 4 seconds. Doing this even just a few times forces a massive rush of oxygen directly into your brain. It acts literally like a physical reset switch. It quickly shuts down that anxiety loop, stops the overthinking, and locks your mind firmly back in the present moment so you can actually start observing again. So we've explored our massive blind spots, we've unpacked the brain attic, and we've learned how to clear the thought cloud. But I really want to leave you with one final provocative question. Did you genuinely observe this explainer, or did you just watch it? I'm playfully challenging you here. Did you happen to notice if the background colors changed subtly throughout our time together? Or if anything shifted around while you were listening? Remember, your brain is the ultimate supercomputer, but only if you actively choose to turn on the monitor. Take these techniques, clear your cloud, and start genuinely noticing the world around you.